Hey everybody, it's Mike. Thanks for joining me for another video in connection with Wellbeing Week in Law. You'll notice I'm in the garage today. The reason I'm out here, and I'm going to try to tie this in later, I hope I can in a way that makes sense, is because, to borrow a phrase from the legal profession, for today's topic, proper venue lies in the garage. Now, if you've been with me this week, you know that the organizers of Wellbeing Week have assigned a different topic to each day, with each topic being an aspect of our overall well-being. I'm going to use my notes today to try to stay on task. Today's topic is intellectual well-being, and the slogan we're using is engage and grow. And so we're talking about the importance of constantly engaging and growing intellectually and the benefits that can have to our well-being. Engaging and growing intellectually, both at work and in our personal lives. And there's a phrase I came across that I'm going to start using when it comes to engaging and growing intellectually, and that's let's remain constantly curious. And I linked in the blog to an article on curiosity and how important it is to our intellectual well-being and our overall well-being. We're not going to go into it, but essentially, the data shows that people who remain curious learn new things as they get older, measure better on all the metrics we use to measure well-being, to assess well-being, than people who don't, who stop engaging and growing intellectually. So I guess that's how it all ties into well-being. I want to talk about ways to engage and grow intellectually, both at work and outside of work, and then use a couple of really foolish examples from my own life, and then tie them into a very serious topic, imposter syndrome, at the end of this video. But first, how do we engage and grow intellectually at work? I have some ideas. I'd love to hear yours. They're probably better than mine. The blog includes a link to a Zoom discussion we're going to have today at noon, where I encourage people to join and share your thoughts. Here are a couple that I came up with. First, take a CLE in a area of law that you don't practice. It can be hard to engage and grow at work these days because we tend to focus on a particular practice area and do it over and over and over and over again. Take a CLE. Jennifer and Laura down at the VBA do a fantastic job making sure that there are offerings that span the practice areas. You could use 1 or 2 of your 24 hours to learn something new, to take a CLE in an area of law that you don't typically involve yourself. You might learn something that might engage your brain. It might even, who knows, make you think about expanding your practice areas. I don't know, but at least it'd be an hour where your brain's working on something new and it's helping your intellectual development. Related, you could talk to Mary Ashcroft down at the VBA and take a pro bono or low bono case, including in an area of law that you don't typically practice. That's a great way to engage your brain, to learn something new that might, in fact, reinvigorate you when you go back to, the same old of the daily routine at work. I can hear you as bar counsel, or not as bar counsel, but telling me as bar counsel, well, wait a minute, Mike, why would you tell me to take a pro bono case in an area of law that I don't practice? Wouldn't that violate the duty of competence? As bar counsel, I'll tell you, no, you wouldn't. The comments to the rule make it very clear that it's okay to take a case in an area in which you've never practiced, as long as you get up to speed. And trust me, you'll get up, not only will you get up to speed, you think you're not good at that area of law, you're going to leave the person far better off than letting them fend for themselves. So just consider that. It might be a way to, again, stimulate the brain, engage and grow intellectually at work by learning a little bit in the context of a pro bono or low bono case about an area of law that you're not typically involved. Foolish story, not really foolish, but an example of how just a little thing can help engage the brain at work. So a couple of weeks ago, I saw on Twitter sort of a trending discussion about a recent opinion from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And the opinion dealt with proper venue, and where it lies in federal criminal cases. Now, venue in general is something I don't care about, don't need to know about. Certainly don't need to know about where it lies in federal criminal cases. The reason I read the appellate opinion had nothing to do with venue, but it was because I could see from the discussion that the case involved an international arms dealer, one of the more notorious ones. As a huge fan of like spy novels and the Bourne movies or the Mission Impossible movies, I thought, wow, I'm going to check this out. And I did. As I was reading the facts, the facts section of the opinion, I was enthralled by the story about this international arms dealer. So enthralled that when I got to the venue discussion, I kept reading where normally I wouldn't. I would have stopped, but I was so curious. And I ended up afterwards doing a little bit more research on venue, and in particular, venue and federal criminal prosecutions. So I know that's a very small example, but I engaged, grew a little bit, I think, at work. I don't know. Now I know something about venue and federal criminal cases, but just a small example of, or an example of how small something can be, or you perceive it to be small, but it really triggers intellectual engagement and perhaps growth. I guess we could argue about the growth part. How to grow outside of work. I've been pretty clear about this in the past, and Jennifer at the VBA does a great job with her Pursuits of Happiness column and project, that find something to do that has nothing to do with the law. Make time to do it. It really, really goes a long way towards improving your well-being. If you can find some way to engage, something to engage in, that'll just help you grow intellectually or as a person. I've done a poor job of it, at least in this context. Last year in the video I did for today's theme in last year's Wellbeing Week, I said I was going to learn how to play piano. I haven't even come close. In fact, the keyboard that I had last year in my basement that I was going to use to teach myself how to play piano is now at a friend's house because some friends came over the holidays. Their kids found the keyboard, loved it. I gave it to them. So those kids are now engaged and then growing, learning music, learning how to play the keyboard. I'm not. Here is, however, can't believe I'm going to share this story. Something I have learned at least since the pandemic started. I decided I was going to teach myself not to dance, but how to do the electric slide. I used to know how to do it, don't anymore. Was out here in the garage one night listening to music, and I don't know why, but I decided, I should learn the electric slide. So it took a while, but I taught myself. And I not only taught myself, I have figured out that there's not a song Alexa can play to which I can't do the electric slide. Now, it takes a while, it's depending on the song, to get the right tempo, and get it correct, but I can do it. And the venue for me in which I learned the electric slide and the proper venue for me to do the electric slide remains this garage. That's because I'm not quite confident enough to do it elsewhere. For instance, on stage at the next VBA meeting, I'm not going to reprise that song I sang a couple years ago and do the electric slide because I'm just not confident enough. So confidence, though, is something I want to talk about more seriously than the story I just shared. So one reason curiosity and intellectual growth is important is because intellectual growth breeds confidence in what we do. And believe it or not, confidence is something that many lawyers are lacking. There are a lot of lawyers and legal professionals who deal with what's called imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is essentially a feeling that I'm a fraud, I'm a fake, I don't know what I'm doing. Pretty soon, my clients are going to find out and they're going to fire me. The people I work with are going to find out and they're going to fire me from my job. Disciplinary authority is going to find out, a judge is going to find out and report me, I'm going to get sanctioned. And it's a real thing. It impacts 70% of people in the practice. 70% of the people practicing law, working in the profession, have at one point or another in their careers felt that they don't belong. And that's a form of imposter syndrome. And it comes from not feeling confident. And I shared a really tragic story a couple of years ago, and I'm going to share it again today. in the context of talking about imposter syndrome and how we need to combat it. In 2018, there was a lawyer named Gabe McConnell, who was 42 years old and who by all measures was extremely successful. However, he took his own life. And after he did, his wife, also a lawyer, Joanna Litt, wrote a letter to the American lawyer in which she expressed her anger at Big Law. Gabe worked in what's called Big Law, a giant law firm, for taking her husband's life. And in particular, she focused on the fact that, and here are some quotes from her letter, that Gabe, before he died, felt like a phony who had everyone fooled about his abilities and thought that he soon was going to lose his job after a particular case ended, when in fact his abilities were fantastic. Again, by any measure, great lawyer. But he didn't feel that way. And she wrote that because of his own, feelings, he died overworked, feeling overworked, inferior, and undervalued. And Gabe, I believe, was dealing with imposter syndrome. There was no reason for him to feel that way. And I've also linked in today's blog to some ideas on how to help people who are coping with imposter syndrome, because these are people who are, as they are trying to grow intellectually at work or outside of work, aren't confident in their growth, aren't confident in their abilities. How can we help them be confident as they continue on their growth path? There's a couple of very simple ways. One is we've all felt that. I said 70%, the data shows 70% of us in the profession have dealt with imposter syndrome or feelings related to it at one point or the other, that I don't belong. Pretty soon everybody else is going to figure out that I'm just a fraud, a phony. Share your story so that other people will know they're not alone and maybe feel comfortable sharing theirs. More importantly, as we're working with, particularly you supervisors, as we're working with people who are challenging themselves to grow intellectually or to grow at work, let's remember how we speak to them. Gabe's wife's letter mentioned the unrealistic standards of achievement associated with the profession and our hypercriticism of people who fail to meet them. Hypercriticism. People who are trying to engage and grow might lack the confidence to do so. We can't criticize them. We have to give them positive reinforcement. And when I was coaching basketball, I was involved in a group called the Positive Coaching Alliance. And one of their tenets was that for every 5 comments a coach gives to a player, coaching, 4 of them have to be positive. You can't always be negative with people. You have to help them become confident in themselves. So instead of, hey, you're terrible at dribbling, you're terrible at shooting, oh, you're not bad at defense, but you're terrible at everything else. That's not good. It's more like, hey, nice job learning to dribble with your left hand when they won't let you use your right hand. Really good job rebounding today. Getting a lot better at your foul shots. I love it. Here's what you might want to work on, though, when it comes to defense. Mix in 1 at the most, comment that's even remotely negative. Be more positive. No more hypercriticism when people feel like they aren't growing intellectually and meeting these unrealistic standards that we tend to put on ourselves in this profession. That's a way to help others to engage and grow intellectually. That's really all I have today. No, that is all I have today, as I'm here in the proper venue, the garage, to talk about engaging and growing intellectually. I would love, again, to hear your thoughts. Please join us at noon if you can. It took me forever to do this video today. Stymied my own well-being temporarily because the first time I tried it, trash truck came by. Second time I tried it, the recycle truck came by. And then the third time I tried it, the F-35s decided to take off, and I live right in the flight path. So I'm thankful that I got through this video. Again, thanks for listening. Would love to hear from you at noon if you have any ideas to share on ways to grow intellectually, to remain constantly curious, both in our jobs and in our personal lives. Have a fantastic day.